Hey everyone, this is Meyer, and in this video what we're going to be doing is creating this sweep effect here that's used right when the drop starts. Here's what it sounds like on its own. And in the context of the mix. And you can actually really hear it when you don't have it. This is what it sounds like without it. So really important to have that in there. All right, so to go ahead and get started, what we're gonna do is I'm going to duplicate this init patch. And what I wanna do here is use this one as my sweep. So I'm just gonna call this sweep, and we're gonna give this a nice kind of green color and a little nature icon. What we're going to use is a combination of a drum sample and noise. The drum sample is going to basically be the crash that takes the mids, and then the sweep is going to be from the high end. So what I'm going to do is load in the sample here to the drum sequencer. I'll explain what I'm doing here in a second. And what I want to do is go over here to my Trance drum samples and simply load in the crash like so. The next thing I need to do is make sure this thing doesn't loop, because I may have this sweep play for a long time. So let me set this to 2, and I'm going to find the speed. It's the other way, this way. So I can just simply say loop 16, and that gives me 16 times 8 beats to hold this down. So I'm pretty confident I'm never going to need to worry about this thing actually re-triggering when I don't want it to. So turn this down. Turn this up. This is pretty good the way we have it now. And yeah, this all looks good. Velocity. Cool. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to add noise on oscillator 1. So I'm going to turn oscillator 1 on, and I'm going to choose under noise white. The next thing is I'm going to set this to stereo, just so we have the noise as we want to have it. Now the cool thing about this now is I can still play the sample and have the noise playing here as well. However, what I'm going to do is something a little bit different. Rather than using the volume envelope the way it normally is, I'm actually going to set this to be kind of a block like this, and I'm instead going to use an auxiliary envelope to adjust the volume. And the reason I want to do this is I also want to gate the noise as well. And now that we have that set up, I want to actually, this is the gating part. I'm going to choose gate for LFO1, and I'm going to modulate the volume with this. So now this has 2 sources. Let's go ahead and set this to maybe 1/4. Now, if you notice what's going on, it's not actually fading out. And the reason for this, the main reason for this, is simply because all it's doing is adding additional modulation to the volume. So both of these are modulating in the positive direction. So the way we're going to get away with having it gate and decay in volume is we're going to use what's called recursive modulation. So this is still going to be auxiliary 1 envelope to volume 1, but this isn't going to be modulated at all. And LFO1 plus is actually going to modulate matrix send 1. So what this is going to do is it's going to turn this on and off, which will basically adjust how much this envelope is actually adjusting the sound. It's kind of weird, but think about this as being the thing that's adjusting the volume. So when the LFO is high, this envelope will be fully modulating the volume, meaning the oscillator will be on depending on its position here. And when this LFO is off, it means this envelope will not be adjusting the sound, which means the sound will be off. So take a listen. You kind of get them both. Now what I like doing is a little bit of both. I like modulating this and adjusting the matrix as well. kind of like that, which is kind of cool. So it'll start by having some modulation. This will add to it, but eventually they'll both kind of come off. So this keeps it from being too harsh. Sounding good. And we're also going to use the filter envelope for this filter, but the lucky thing about using this drum sequencer, and of course we could have used an oscillator for this too, the main reason I like doing it this way is these are stereo samples, whereas if you load a sample here, sometimes it's in mono, so it's easier to do it this way. So what I'm going to do here is go ahead and I'm going to choose the BP, the bandpass, the boobs filter, which works really well for these kinds of sounds. So we're just going to start it and just simply take this down, really increase the decay quite a bit, maybe like 10 seconds or something. And what I may do is I kind of like taking envelope 1 and adjusting this to the resonance. So as it comes down, the boobs are going to kind of, the two bandpass filters are going to like basically move farther apart. Actually, we need to do this in the negative direction. So it starts kind of it'll start close together, which is low resonance. And of course, we need to make sure we don't have this too loud to overcome this kick sample. We can, of course, adjust the volume here. And I think this filter envelope actually needs even more decay. Maybe we'll bring this up to around 10 seconds. And the nice thing about doing it this way is we can then just simply use this to adjust the overall volume of the noise. And in terms of the effects, we could add a little bit of reverb. Maybe I'll just add this medium reverb. Now, one of the cool things is we need to choose whether or not we want the drums to come here as before. This crash sample already has reverb on it, so it doesn't need it. So that definitely doesn't need it, and we can turn the damping down, turn the size up. And just add a little bit of high cut. That's sounding pretty good. Let's go ahead and put this in. I'm going to go ahead and add FX, sweep, create a new pattern, give it a color, all of that stuff, and then just simply draw this in, maybe for like 8 bars. Let's see if that sounds pretty good. And where this is, of course, going to come in right here. And I think what this needs is perhaps a little bit less of the gating and more of the actual sample. Like that. really even increase the filter decay as well. Here we go. And I'm just adding this limiter to kind of glue the sound together a little bit, so that crash really comes through. Maybe increase the decay here as well. And the last place we may want to use this is when this when the filter's all the way open. That's sounding pretty good.